What's up guys, hope everyone is doing well. In this video I'm going to be going over the Bitcoin dominance in comparison to the price of Bitcoin and going over and fixing a small mistake I made in the last altcoin video when I was going over this for the first time. And then I'm going to segue this into going over Bitcoin in comparison to Ethereum, in comparison to Cardano, and pointing out some structural similarities, the hysteresis between Bitcoin and altcoins, or anything that's just not Bitcoin basically. And then ultimately this is all going to segue into me going over Bitcoin and its phases and the two phases that make up a cycle, which is all just going to act as a preface and precedent for the analysis of the specific altcoins that I'm going to go over in this video, which is the foundation for the price targets and projections that I'll be going over. But nonetheless, to go ahead and get it started here, we can see the Bitcoin dominance here on the top, and on the bottom we see here the price of Bitcoin. And this all hinges around the presidential elections within America, where we see the turquoise period. So we see election of 2016, election here of 2020, then recently the election of 2024. And there's this inverse correlation. The dominance dumps, Bitcoin goes up. See the same thing 2020, see the same thing. I think at least we'll see the same thing this time around as well, as Bitcoin is making this final stride here towards the upside, this final and third leg of this current bull market, as we're around 2/3 of the way into this current bull market. Also lining up with the beginning of alt season, as we see here at the dominance, this descending trend resistance. We see right here that the dominance is sitting right on top of it. This is actually the current weekly candle, is the first red candle since like the beginning of September. So we could see, I think there's potential room to see the dominance have one more spike towards the upside here, especially as Bitcoin pushes above 100K towards around like 110 to 130K. I think there's that chance for one more spike, and then a final rejection here, looking something similar to these first two instances, where we'll start to see the dominance here do something similar to each of these times. As you see the dominance coming down to the 50% region. So this is going to be this purple trend, horizontal trend here. This is lining up with the final dump in the dominance. Bitcoin's topping out here. We see the same thing here, final dump in the dominance. Bitcoin's topping out at 64K, which 64K, according to, me and this channel and anytime I'll ever go over it, 64K was the all-time high structurally speaking. Obviously, Bitcoin right here went to 69K November 2021, but structurally speaking, as I said, 64K is the all-time high, and this entire period right here would have been distribution, ultimately double topped, and then led into the bear market. So if we see here recently, like I said, if we get this rejection, Bitcoin dominance comes down, hits this 50% area, and then continues to go lower. Whenever we see the dominance of Bitcoin go below that 50%, that obviously means that the altcoin space is having a dominance over Bitcoin, which means that Bitcoin has already likely set its all-time high, if not very close to it. And we're seeing the altcoins breaking their all-time highs and then, heading towards their final stretch in their bull markets. As Bitcoin dominance bottoms out, we'll start to see, like I said, first Bitcoin top out, and then a number of months later, we'll see the altcoins begin to top out. And these yellow periods here that we see, you see there's not one here for this first iteration back in 2017, 2018, because all the altcoins, there is a negligible period of time that the altcoins topped out after Bitcoin, so it's not really worthy of incorporating. But the second time around here, there was a non-negligible lag or a hysteresis of the altcoins in comparison to Bitcoin, where we saw Bitcoin top out in 2021 around March, April. Then we saw a lot of altcoins making sizable gains leading into November, generally the end of 2021, where we see that hysteresis, and hysteresis just means where we see the origin cause creates an effect, and then these effects have a lag behind the cause, and where these basically we're talking about quantities here, where the origin cause is Bitcoin. It's the first, cryptocurrency, at least the first successful cryptocurrency, the top dog of the cryptocurrency space. and all the altcoins created after it are kind of like whenever you drop a rock into a body of water and you see that rock hits the water, it's the origin, it's the cause of those ripples and those waves that start emanating in, circular geometries, diverging away from that point source, that central point where that rock or pebble, whatever you're dropping in there, created that wave effect. And that would be the hysteresis, to where you see a quantity lagging behind its causal origin. Hysteresis is used in economics and financial situations and contexts. It's also used within physics, such as like the electromagnetic waves and the field space-time that it travels within, where you have the causal origin of an electromagnetic impulse, and then the impulse that propagates across time afterwards would be that hysteresis rate, that lagging effect around what caused it to impulse in the first place. But anyways, what we're seeing here again, like I said, is this time around for this third iteration, I believe we'll see something similar. We will see a non-negligible lag effect, a hysteresis effect, because I think what actually we're seeing here is that Bitcoin, as Bitcoin matures and ages and just progresses over time, I think there's a good chance we might likely see this lagging effect get even longer, and probably likely reach a limit at some point, to where it's just maybe over the next 10 years we'll finally start to solidly see that the longest it will take altcoins to top out after Bitcoin is somewhere around like I don't know, approximately 3-4 months or so. But there's also outliers, like some altcoins will top out before Bitcoin, especially like weird coins like meme coins that just are very sporadic, will top out before Bitcoin. But generally the dominant scenarios is that Bitcoin tops out and then altcoins top out some period of time afterwards. So moving here into the comparison of Bitcoin on the top, Ethereum in the middle, and then Cardano here on the bottom. We see these vertical lines here in 2017 lined up on December 2017. This is when Bitcoin topped out. We can see Ethereum topped out in January. Then Cardano also topped out in January. Like I said, this is negligible. It's not really worth incorporating, like I said, over the dominance chart. Whereas if we look here in 2021, we can see Bitcoin topped out again at 64K, structurally speaking. Then Ethereum continued to move all the way up to around basically 5K approximately, and then end of 2021, November roughly. And then Cardano actually did something a little different. It continued to go higher after Bitcoin topped out, similar to Ethereum, but Cardano ended up topping out in August, and it then began its bear market then, which is from what I can recall right now, this is the only altcoin that I think did this, at least out of the viable altcoins that are actually like project-based altcoins, not the weird coins and the meme coins that just sporadically behave themselves. But I think this is quite interesting. Maybe we'll see Cardano do something similar this time around and kind of top out, kind of have this liminal, like middle ground where it tops out after Bitcoin but before Ethereum. But lastly, I want to go over each of these. So we see here this W here for Bitcoin. Then going down to Ethereum, we see the exact same thing happened. If we look at Cardano, we see the exact same thing happen. Ultimately, what we're seeing here is a massive W with a type 2 bottom, where the type 2 bottom is defined by creating a bottom, a double bottom, by making an M, and it's called a type 2 because there's two peaks. And this, again, like I said, you can clearly see it happen on all three of these, and it happened on a lot of other altcoins as well. But as you start to get away from these three, deeper into the altcoin pool, they start to look less and less like it, but it's still there if you really look closely. And then you can also see that these bear markets, like Ethereum here for this entire bear market, looked more similar to Bitcoin than Cardano. Started to not look as much like it, but it's still there, which I'm not going to focus much on that. But overall, again, just remember how structurally similar each of these are for phase one, which leads into this here. So what you currently see here segmented off for the price of Bitcoin, this is cycle 2 overall, there's been 3 cycles, and we're encroaching upon the end of phase 1, so the first half of cycle 3 for Bitcoin. And this right here is going to be phase 1. So we see a W, and then we see this bull market here. That's phase 1. And then we see phase 2 here. We see this bear market, and then we see the bull market. Within this bear market, you see also down here, you see this type 2M setting its double bottom, similar to the type 2M setting the double bottom here in phase 1. We also see phase 1 again for cycle 2 here, setting a double bottom as well, then leading into either you can characterize this bull market like this, where you see 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5, so like an Elliott impulse wave pattern, or it can also be just as properly characterized as just a massive kind of ABCD like pattern. But overall, sum it up, we see again here phase 1, we see phase 2 right here, which then moves into where we have been here currently. This being what we have seen so far of cycle 3, where we see again, we see this W right here, and this is what I was just going over on the prior chart. We see this M leading into the final double bottom bull market. This is the first leg right here. We then see, like I said, this distribution period. We see this double top. Then we see bear market. Then we also see an M right here as well. And I'll actually go down just a little bit on the time frame to show it more clearly. You see this almost every single time for Bitcoin when it sets a double bottom at its bear market bottoms. You see this M right here. This is a downward slanted M. Like I said, we see right here, this would be more of an upwards slanted M. And then going all the way back to phase 2, cycle 2, we again see a sideways M right here to characterize that accumulation period. So as I said, here for cycle 3, we see the first leg, we then see bear market, then we're seeing right here the second leg, and this is going to be synonymous to, since that is phase 1, we look at back here at phase 1 of cycle 2, the prior iteration. We see again the double bottom, so that's the precedent for the bull market. Then we overall see here first leg correction, second leg, which again, like I said, is synonymous. Let me zoom all the way out here. Let's go to the higher, a little bit higher time frame. We look at these again, so first leg correction, second leg, and then up here would be first leg correction, second leg. Now, some of you might be wondering, especially if you already aren't familiar with when I go over this in this channel, like how could this be the same? It doesn't even look really that much alike, because I mean this correction right here is almost 2 years long, and this one right here is not even a year or barely even 6 months long. But it's also the same reason why the very clearly discernible W right here and the very clearly discernible W right here, you can see this one's longer in terms of how long it took to play out than this one was, and it is because of the lengthening of the phases and the cycles, which is a fairly commonly known thing, especially for people that have been within the space for, I would say, at least, if you're really looking and researching into the space, I mean, at least, 4 to 6 months, definitely over a year. Which also is related to why the bull markets are becoming less bullish over time and the bear markets are becoming less bearish. Again, would also be why you see the first leg here is, the second one right here is longer than the second leg for phase 1 of cycle 2 is longer than our current cycle 3 second leg of phase 1. I also want to point out this right here as well, where you can see this kind of just build up period right here until the major bull market run right there. Then you can also look here at phase 2 of cycle 2. You see something similar. It's kind of this stair-stepping build up, and then the major bull market, you see something very similar right here as well. This kind of stair-stepping build up, then major bull market. You've seen it throughout this entire one here as well. That does look a bit different. You see this like stair-stepping impulse, and then correction, another impulse. All just looks very similar, very self-similar really is what all this is pointing to. Cyclically repetitive, just relevant to feedback loops and scale invariant phenomena, and fractals and things along that nature. And then really to wrap all this background full circle, this, what you see here is phase, not phase, but rather this is cycle 1, which again is going to be composed of phase 1 and phase 2. And really what characterizes this outside of the structured patterning that I was going over for the other one, cycle 2 and cycle 3, we see, so this is the first peak, so the beginning basically, second peak, third peak, and then the fourth peak up here. You can also still see, let's just zoom in here. You can still see that it's doing this. We see this kind of W, this double bottom. Obviously, you see this weird incoherent trading. This is very early on in the lifespan of Bitcoin, and you can see that looking at the price history. It's a little bit more incoherent as it actually became more of a well-known and widely invested asset. Its price projection, or price performance rather, became more coherent over time and less just, wacky. But ultimately what you see here is this W, leads into here, bull market of phase 1. Again, you see this A, B, C, D like pattern. You see first leg correction, second leg, and then you see phase 2 right here, then this massive bull market. Even this is similar, very similar to the phase 2 that I was showing, especially in cycle 2, because we haven't seen cycle 3's phase 2 yet. But you see this kind of just, gradual, diagonally slanted bear market, and then you just see this massive bull market towards, cycle 3 ended at around $30, $31, $32 here in 2011. And then going finally back to the weekly here, and let's see here, pointing out again each of these peaks. So like I said, this would be peak 1, 2, 3, 4. Then the cycle begins again, beginning at phase 1. 4 becomes the new 1. Then we have 2, 3, 4. Again, cycle phases, they repeat. So 4 becomes a new 1. We have here 2. Then all you could really just call 2 this entire double top right here. And then we're heading anywhere at highest around $230, I think, sometime first half of next year. So somewhere like right here within this range will be the third peak, and then we'll be waiting on the fourth peak. So we're still, as we end phase 1 here of the current cycle 3, would then be entering the bear market of phase 2, and then ultimately entering the bull market of phase 2 of cycle 3. And like I said, so this sets the precedent, prefaces the type of analysis and the way I'll be going over every single one of these altcoins. Are all basically going to be looking the same in terms of what I'm going to be going over. But here we can see this bull market here for Phantom. This is structurally synonymous to the first leg of phase 1. So what we saw from Bitcoin as it had made its way to 64K. If we look here at this descending resistance, you can see Bitcoin recently with the new weekly candle has finally gotten above it, or rather Phantom. This is Phantom I'm going over, not Bitcoin. If we look here at the SMAs, so you see the white's the 50, the 100 is the orange, the black is the 200. The 50 is very close to the 200. We want to see the 50 go above the 200. It's going to be the what's commonly called the golden cross. Afterwards, we want to see the 100 get above the 200 to further confirm that bullish sentiment. When it comes to potential retracement and support, I mean, I think it could technically retrace down to maybe around like approximately 45 cents. But if it starts to go substantially lower than that, that might be creating some room for worry. But overall, I don't think it's likely to go down any substantially more than around like 60, 65 cents at this point. But that is definitely there if, Phantom does indeed see a major, more sizable correction, especially because Bitcoin seems to be entering somewhat of a larger correction as what it's seen so far, as it's been going up since around 50K. But if you look here at the circulating supply, 2.8 billion, market value at $90 would be 252 billion. The market value at $196 would be pushing 550 billion. That's going to be this blue box up here. Again, like I said, this is going to be kind of the layout for all of these altcoins. So the blue box is the all-time high range. Like I said, anywhere from around 90 to just approximately $200. I do think that, and well, actually, before I get to that, the price target is derived again from the first leg, and the Each of these, the lower bound, so here for Phantom 90, the upper bound 196, is me taking the prior bull market, so the first leg of phase one, from the candle closes here. This creates the lower bound here. It just pushes 96, and then we have from the wicks, this would then create the upper bound here, and so that's going to be the same thing for all of these, so I don't have to continue to take these price targets and show that each time. That's why this box is here. But when it comes to the market value, I do think, and as I've said in recent videos, I think that the market value for all of the cryptocurrencies, excluding Bitcoin and Ethereum, which is the total 3 chart on TradingView, I think it could reasonably push anywhere from 3 to 7 trillion and maybe push towards 10 trillion, especially if the overall total cryptocurrency market value pushes above 16 trillion, which is my reasonable upper bound, towards like 18 to 20 trillion. So let's say that the altcoin market value only goes to like 3, 4, 5 trillion. Then this market value for Phantom at basically half a trillion starts to become rather unlikely, because it's going to be taking up a big slice, a big chunk of that, 3, 4, 5 trillion dollar altcoin market value. But also at the end of the day, if the market value does go towards that upper bound around 7 to 10 trillion, this becomes a lot more likely. This, up to $200. Maybe even go a little bit higher, but I would say anywhere from, really just at least retesting the all-time high. So around $3.50 to, like I said, all the way up to maybe $200 here for Phantom. If you look here at the horizontal resistance, there is the local high back here at $1.10, which is basically where Phantom's sitting at right now. And then generally the distribution period, so right here for Phantom, will be also a region of price action that could be potentially some resistance and healthy consolidation before a impulse further towards the upside, which sits anywhere from around like $1.50 up towards like $3.50. Looking here at MATIC hadn't been performing too well over since it's been going down since March. A lot of the altcoins have been going up since August. Whereas, MATIC was just going down. It actually went lower than it had every single time, going back to September 2023, going back to June 2022. And it retested this consolidation period right here back in March before this kind of final strut here towards the all-time highs here for MATIC. So it's seeing currently a bounce right here. Is very nice to see. It's seeing quite a strong bounce. It is coming into contact with the 200, roughly the 200 SMA right now. Or rather the 50 SMA. So, there could potentially be some rejection there, but if MATIC starts to go below around like 28, 27, especially 25 cents, that's might, end up, it could potentially spell disaster, because, there's literally nothing until all the way back down here, going all the way down to like roughly around 1 penny to 3 pennies. So, that's where the first resistance or support rather, really starts to come into play. So it could be a major free fall. I don't think that's too likely. I wouldn't say that's the more than likely scenario, but it's definitely possible. If you look at the descending resistance, it sits, depending upon when MATIC hits it, somewhere around like 84, 85 cents. The entire range of the SMAs right now sits around 64 to around 94 cents. So that's also generally going to be a broader range to get above. The local high here for March was $1.17. Local high here for February is around $1.38. And then there's also going to be this kind of portion right here in the distribution, anywhere from around like $1, let's just say $1.50, up to the all-time high, borderline $3. All of those will be important to see MATIC get above. If we look at the circulating supply, 2.35 billion, market value at 50. The lower bound, 117.5 billion. Market value at the upper bound of $115 would be $270.25 billion. Again, blue box creates that range. And then that is again derived from the leg here that is synonymous to phase one. This is obviously lower than Phantom and a little bit more reasonable or feasible, especially if the market value of the altcoins hits that lower bound around 3.45 trillion approximately. Now, as it really something to convey for all of these, if the market value of all the altcoins goes towards that upper bound, then a lot of these altcoins could go even higher than the upper bounds and the highest projections I'm giving for them. But generally, I would just say that any of the the projections I'm going over for these would be I would say considerably somewhat reasonable and conservative at the end of the day. If you look here at theta, we see again descending resistance has not gotten above it yet, sits somewhere around $2.25. It's above the 50 SMA. We've seen the 50 get above the 100. We need to see the 50 get above the 200, then the 100 above the 200. The 200 SMA sits at around $2.85. Local high of March sits at around $3.23. And then we have this distribution zone roughly right here, anywhere from around $4 pushing, $13 to $16. That's going to be a region that needs to solidify support, and theta needs to, just obviously and generally get above that with some strength. The circulating supply, as we can see here, 1 billion, pretty low. Market value at 170, the lower bound, obviously 170 billion, upper bound at 250 billion. Again, the blue box we see here. Now all of these altcoins I think will top out, like I said, somewhere second half of next year, closer towards the first half right now currently is what I'm thinking. But no earlier than, I would say, the first half of next year. I don't think we'll see altcoins top out. Maybe some of them, maybe some of the weird ones or the wacky ones like I was saying earlier, but most of these, especially the ones I'm going over in this video, I think we'll see them top out closer towards mid to second half of next year. And again, this is derived from this first leg, the bull market, only bull market theta's seen, corresponds to phase 1. When it comes to potential support, there's some, the 100 sits right at around this local low region right here at around $1, let's just say around $1.15. The vector candles and volume control zones also go down to around like $1.10, $1.15. So that would be some room for support. If it starts to go below like $1, then that could also not be too good. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it could still do that, especially in some quick wicks, and then find some support. But overall, right now, I think what's more likely than not is we're going to see these altcoins start to trek upwards rather than making major corrections. If we look here at ANKR, again, we see the descending resistance has not gotten above it. This one looks fairly similar to theta. The descending resistance sits basically at approximately 5 cents. That's also approximately where the 200 SMA sits. Price is above the 50 SMA. The 50 is above the 100. We need to see the 50 get above the 200, 100 above the 200. Local high of April sits around 6 cents. And then we have our distribution period right here for the prior all-time high. Anywhere from around like approximately 7 cents up to from around let's say 17 to 21 cents. Around 7 to 21 cents could be a consolidation range, perhaps. And this kind of goes to say for a lot of these altcoins, especially the ones I've already gone over, we'll see them kind of go up to the distribution phase, sit here for a bit, and then finally break out, maybe come down and test that again, and then finally kind of make this final stride here towards the top, this all-time high zone. Again, this would be the first leg, the bull market of phase 1 here for ANKR. Also the only one it has seen. Circulating supply of 10 billion, market value at $2.20, so the lower bound of this box, 22 billion, market value at the upper bound of $5, 50 billion. Again, this is very low, even if Bitcoin, or rather the total altcoin market value hits that lower bound of 3.45 trillion. This is still quite feasible at the end of the day. So I wouldn't say there's any, and because of this as well, it could also go way higher than this, but I don't have any technical reason, nor can I find anything within the data on the charts to, outside of like Fibonacci zones. But I mean those are very, very useful, don't get me wrong, but that's not really much when it comes to trying to form some sort of string of logic and reasoning to try to create some sort of projection zone in order to make a successful trade. We move actually, before I move into the next one, the potential retracement. The vector candles sit right here, going all the way around 2.5 pennies. Anything below that would, likely start to enter danger zone or potential worry territory. But like I said, I don't think that that's most likely. We'll see some pretty major corrections here for the altcoins, as I believe altcoin season is basically already, well, maybe not basically already began is the best way to put it, but it's in the very early proto stages of really beginning. We look here at XYO. Again, we see descending resistance here. We also will see on this one, I thought that it would be very important to point out this ascending kind of somewhat of a median zone, which mostly has been resistance. Well, it's really only been resistance, where you can see back here in March, resistance. Again, May, resistance, 2021. We see here August 2022 resistance. We see this wick right here in January 2023 resistance. We see right here March, February 2024 resistance. So this is going to be very, very important for XYO to get above. And right now, depending upon when it hits it, it sits basically pushing towards the upper bound, 2 cents. So 2 cents is going to be very important for XYO to get above, which is also the local high, so the potential horizontal resistance of this local high right here back in February, March of 2024. Right now, it's currently candles above its resistance, so that's really good to see. The 50 is above the 100, the 50 needs to get above the 200, and then so on and so forth, 100 above the 200. And we look here at the distribution, somewhat of a distribution phase right here, anywhere from around, so basically lines up with that 2 cents. So really somewhere around like 3 cents up towards that, 7-8 cents is going to be potential room for rejection into healthy consolidation. But it's also quite likely, like I was saying, that we see a lot of these altcoins as they really begin to pump, they actually just really shoot like just a little bit above the all-time high, and then come down to retest that all-time high, and then eventually end up coming up higher here. Something similar to what Bitcoin did actually when it hit 74K and then retraced its 50K. Could see something similar to that in a lot of these altcoins. But if we also go back in time a bit and look here at XYO during this prior bear market, you can see there's this another descending trend. You can see it broke it here as well. Actually looks quite similar, especially if you look here at the RSI to our current, where we are currently. And before I actually get to that, I need to go over the similarities in the way that the price looks. You see this W here for XYO, similar to how I was going over Bitcoin, Ethereum, Cardano. And then you also see this W right here as well, leading into this upcoming bull market. And what's interesting is when you look here at the RSI, you can see that this W period looks very, very much so similar to the current one, where you can see it really begin right here. It's going up as it's going up right here currently. Then you kind of see this chop off right here. Then it drops down to the orange range. You see the same thing here. This kind of chop off, drops down to the orange range, moves back up to the 618 here. And we're seeing something similar moving up to the 618. It's gone a little bit higher at this point, but this all looks very similar to what happened last time around. Forgot something that I wanted to go over here for XYO. I think's pretty interesting. Maybe not the biggest factor at the end of the day for this coin having a nice, or even entering to begin with, a bull market. But if we actually take here I can actually figure out what I'm doing here and clicking the right things. But look here, so the double bottom, again, here's what I was going over for this first bear market, bull market for XYO. So this being the exact same line, then I take it to the current double bottom. You can see that it's literally the exact same slope, which is why I was calling this right here the double bottom, and then entering the bull market. You can also see what's interesting as well, as you see the prices of XYO here during the prior bear market was coming down, went below the trend, which I didn't just, this obviously, actually let me duplicate this and keep it right here as well. So the price comes below this upper trend of the current W, the double bottom, sits here, comes back up to it, gets rejected, makes this double bottom, comes up, gets rejected once more, makes the second bottom of the double bottom, blows through it, the bull market begins, which roughly this ascending zone right here would be synonymous to an ascending zone similar to what we saw back here that needs to be broken above. Also factoring in that W, and if we also look here once more at the price, you can see kind of like this kind of double top, ascending double top right here, where we saw the same thing happen right here. Also kind of just generally looks like an M, where we're seeing this double bottom here form. And even on top of that, we see this bullish divergence. So right here, we saw the price continuing to go down, but the RSI was going up. And then right here, as the price was setting a low here, then a lower low here, the RSI was moving upwards to print a bullish divergence. The stock RSI is also above the median, looks very similar to going back here as well. You can see this massive M right here during the double bottom the prior bear market. You see this M right here as well. Now it's crossing the median just as it did right here. And I'm going over this coin more in depth just because this has been a one of the more, in terms of my investments, one of the coins I've been associated with more than everything else that I'm going over with. And there's also just a lot of interesting and cool things to point out for this chart. If you look here at the RVI, it's also breaking above the median, which, I mean, that happened last time here back in October when it went from around 1/5 of a penny all the way up to 2 cents. Also is what happened back here as the price was breaking the resistance as well. And if we look here down at the average sentiment oscillator, which is a oscillator that provides a differential between the sentiment, it averages it's an average differential of comparing positive price action and negative price action, so bullish to bearish price action, and it creates this oscillator indicator. And we can see here leading into, again, this is all centered around here, the W double bottom. You see here again the W double bottom. You see down here 1 cross, 2 cross, and then 3 cross lines up with the breaking right here of the resistance. And we're seeing the same thing right here. The first bottom of the double bottom, so here and here, where we see 1 cross, 2, and then 3 right here as we are breaking the resistance, looking again all just very, very self-similar, just repetitive, rhyming, almost borderline repeating almost exactly across history and across its time and its price progression. But if we look here at the 200 SMA, it sits at around a 1 penny. So there's, it could potentially find some rejection there. Maybe it'll sit along that a bit and then shoot above it. Outside of that, the price projection here is going to be circulating supply is 13.48 billion. The market value at the lower bound of 50 cents is 6.74 billion. The market value at $1.80 at the higher bound is going to be 24.26 billion. Again, this is derived from, we see here, this bull market. This is corresponsive to phase 1 of, the model that I'm going over, the pattern of Bitcoin, and superimposing that on these altcoins because of what I already went over earlier. Like I said, setting a precedent and prefacing the fact that everything is in some sort of altcoins I'm speaking of in terms of everything is in some sort of history. So it's a lag behind Bitcoin, where Bitcoin moves first and then the altcoins flow afterwards. And given, again, pretty low circulating supply, not the lowest I've gone over in this video, but the price projection I have for this is, I think, very, very conservative and reasonable because, I mean, at highest, what, approximately 25 billion? That's very small. I mean, again, this could go way higher. I mean, this could go to $10 to $15, and it would still be, I mean, going off the top of my head, less than probably half a trillion, maybe right at it, half a trillion at highest, probably more so around like 300, 400 trillion, maybe 200 trillion. But I mean, still, I mean, $8, to $15 might be quite reasonable. I would say as it starts to hit 15 and 20, it's probably going to start, at me a little too much there. And also, like I said, I don't have any data or anything outside of just taking random Fibonacci extensions, which I said they're important, but I mean, just because the 2.786 sits at $15, I mean, that means nothing at the end of the day because there's nothing outside of that to substantiate the 2.786 being at $15. But anyways, we move into JASMY here, which there's not much data. As I've said, every time I go over this coin, there's just not much data. There's just no bull market that I can go over. So, I mean, there's only this bear market. The all-time high was basically right at $5. Horizontal resistance lines up with this local high of June, also the local high of March 2022, sitting at around basically approximately 4 cents. We see this second one right here, local high of November 2021, 20 cents, approximately 20 cents, and then there's this local high right here at around $1.70, and then like I said, all-time highs at $5. The circulating supply is approximately 50 billion. Market value is $5. The lower bound 247 billion, and the market value at $12.50. 617.38 billion. $5 clearly is just if it retests the prior all-time high, which is actually from top to bottom. Even if it just retests the all-time high, it would have made 180% move, or 180,000% move, which is very, very good. Phantom, like I said, last bull market went around 200,000%. There's also another coin I've gone over, LCX, that went around 450,000%. So I mean, anything over around like approximately 50,000% is when I start to categorize altcoins as in the upper echelon of percentage gains. So even just retesting the all-time high, now that's from the bottom to top. So, but if we go from where it is right now, it's only going to be around like 30,000%, which is still good. Like I said, that would be in like the high, not the like super high, like anything above 50,000%. But I mean, if it goes to $12.50, which I believe I kind of just based that off some fib extension, maybe not. I don't remember what I did to get that. I think I did. I think I just used that because it's close to like $500 billion, which is the highest that I've gone over. Like Phantom was at around $500 billion. Were any of these? Yeah, Phantom pushed $500 billion. I think that's why I did that here for JASMY. But like I said, I mean, especially I think once it starts to hit like $20 to $24 pushing that 1 trillion, I think it's going to be quite unlikely that it does that, just because it's going to be taking up such a large chunk. I mean, if it were to go that high up to let's say 24, that would be around 864,000%. That would be absolutely crazy. Never seen that on a cryptocurrency that's like an actual viable project. I really only ever seen those gains on like I said, the wacky, the weird, the meme coins, the coins that really have no use case whatsoever, and they kind of just pump off of hype or the fact that Bitcoin is just in a bull market. But I do think overall this project is a good project. I've gone over it in the past. I'll likely leave the websites, the links to the websites for all these coins in the description if any of these are new to you, and for whatever reason the analysis here piqued your interest, if you want to go look at the websites yourself and kind of find out more about what the project actually offers as a use case. And then here finally we have Dogecoin, which has a lot of data, goes all the way back to 2014. This is one of the oldest altcoins and cryptocurrencies in general. And yeah, clearly, as you can see, it's done nothing but gradually and steadily go up over around a decade. So that's very good to see, and I think this upcoming bull market will be quite a good one. I do have quite a broad range for it. Again, before I get to that, you see the descending resistance, which already wildly broke that. You can see this ascending resistance right here that goes all the way back to February 2021. Also here at October 31 or October 31st, 2022. And then here around March of 2024. Recently just got above that. So it's I mean, Dogecoin looks great. It looks better than most of the altcoins in the space right now. When it comes to horizontal resistance, I mean, really it's just got the all-time high left in terms of, so candle close around 50 to the wick high around 73, 74 cents. It could come down and hit this resistance here, the purple resistance, to turn it into support. So I mean, that could be anywhere from around like approximately 27 cents, give or take a few cents. Maybe it comes down and retests the pink resistance. I mean, that could go down as low as around 15 cents. I don't think that's too likely, but I mean, it could, could definitely still happen. The 50 EMA, or the 50 SMA rather, is above the 200. That's great to see. Only one of these altcoins I've gone over that's actually, like, well, I don't know if it's the only one actually, now that I think about it. Wasn't there one more? Thought there may have been one more. No, it was just Phantom being very close. Yeah, so this is the only one that's actually gotten the 50 above the 200, so the golden cross. Still need to see the 100 get above that 200 to further confirm. So if we actually look, and I went over this last time I went over Dogecoin, but I need to go over this again because it's just so really mind-blowing and just very, very intriguing. If we look here at this bar pattern I took, stretch it out here, make it a little bit more visible, and then we take this right here. So we take the recent price action and we look at these in comparison. You should be able to notice that these are basically the exact same pattern. We're seeing this kind of upward stair-stepping movement, which is actually similar to when I was going over, look here at Bitcoin, this kind of initial stair-stepping towards the upside. Even actually, if you look here at XYO, it's roughly done something similar. Even Phantom as well, which I went over that the last time. It's a lot harder to see, but it is there nonetheless. But what we see here is, again, so this kind of stair-stepping leading into the really parabolic phase right here again, and then right here. And then it's also, like I said, 50 SMA got above the 200. And as soon as the 50 SMA got above the 200 back in January 2021, it's when Dogecoin was shooting up to around basically right at a penny. As you can see right here, was just a tad bit below this all-time high, which is exactly what it looks like right now, just a tad bit below the all-time high. So not only are we seeing the same exact, foundational, like this base structure here with these fractal bar patterns, and then this very, nice volatile bullish movement towards the upside here, but we're seeing the price is moving just a tad bit below the all-time high. If we look here at the RSI, you can see that it's also printing here on the RSI, where we see stair-stepping right here back in 2020 to 2021, and then the price, or the RSI explodes. See the same thing here, then the price explodes, and these are also horizontally at the RSI is the same region as it was when it happened this first time back in 2020 to 2021. And then 2023 to 2024, we're seeing the same thing happen once more. You can also see that this prior all-time high of 2017, 2018, you see this kind of double top here on the RSI. We saw it right here for 2021 as well. So we might see something similar happen as well as Bitcoin heads into its all-time high. And actually, if we look here at the periods of time, so back in 2021, it was doing this around December, January, and we're seeing the same thing happen around November, December. So a little bit earlier, but really ultimately within the same ballpark of time, which just further adds weight to the fact that, we might be seeing, and I think it's quite clear at this point with how good it's behaving, it's moving better than almost every single altcoin right now. We might be seeing a very massive move, which brings me to, we see the circulating supply very big, 146.81 billion. The market value at the lower bound would be 440.43 billion. Market value at the median, $18. Really not the median, it's not the middle, but it's, a little bit higher. But so 2.463 trillion, and the market value at 27, absolute at highest I think it can go. Maybe a little bit, like a dollar or two more, but basically at approximately 4 trillion is what it would be. And Bitcoin at its all-time high would be basically within the same ballpark of this approximately 4 trillion. So if Dogecoin does actually manage to move up towards, I'll give the range of $20 to $27, then it is going to be very close to the price of Bitcoin's market value. And it might actually even eclipse it for a period of time, especially if Dogecoin tops out, as Bitcoin's already heading down from its all-time high. So we're going to see the market value of Bitcoin going down while Dogecoin is still gaining market value. So we could potentially see that. Now, in terms of the likelihood of that, perhaps it'd be more reasonable to say that that's lower than 50%, but it, definitely could still happen. I don't think it's totally asinine to say that that could happen, especially if it would only eclipse it for a short period of time. But also, important to note that, like I've been saying for a lot of these altcoins, that the overall altcoin market value, if it only reaches 3 to 4 to 5 trillion, then there's no way whatsoever that Dogecoin's going to $27 because it would literally take up the entire altcoin market value, which obviously doesn't make any sense because where's all the other altcoins and their value going to be at? So I mean, if the market value of all the altcoins only goes to like approximately 4 trillion, then I would have to definitely say that Bitcoin would only go as high as around like maybe $3, $4, $5 at highest. Which I mean, even that's pushing it because at $3 it would be almost half a trillion. So in order for Bitcoin to hit, let's say 3 to 18, we need to see the altcoin market hit, I would say, anywhere from around like 7 to 10 trillion, that upper bound, as I was saying. And that might also, still be kind of low, especially if, Bitcoin does push 15 to 18, or rather Dogecoin here pushes 15 to $18. So when it comes to, again, so this is, like I already pointed out to some degree, this is the first leg of phase 1, and we're entering the second leg of phase 2. Again, that gives the price range of really more so the $18 to $27. The $3 is a Fibonacci retracement, which $3 sits roughly at the 1.618. 1.618 sits basically right at $4. So just like I said, approximately $4 is definitely the most reasonable, and that might be what you want to bet your money on if you're, again, none of this in this video is meant to be financial advice, but if you are going to take something away from this and you happen to make a financial investment in anything I'm going over in this video, specifically Dogecoin as I'm talking about it right now, then if it's only going to go to approximately like $3, $4, $5, it's really not worth it, because from where it is right now, that would only be about 1,000% move to the upside, and it's basically already done. Doesn't really have much more room to go up. But I mean, if it does push that 15 to 18, then you're looking at, I mean, even then it's still going to be around 3 to 7,000%. So it's still really not worth it. I mean, if I were to give my 2 cents, I would say at this point, just don't, Dogecoin's not worth investing in, even if it goes to the potentially asinine and absurd target of $20 to $27. But I mean, especially, if a lot of people, if they've still had it since they were buying, like back when it was below a penny, back here in like mid 2020, I mean, if people have rode all the way from up here or down here all the way up to, if let's say Dogecoin does it at like 20, let's just say approximately $25, that's a 1.7 million% move. If it goes to just $3, that's 240%, or more around $4, that's approximately 250,000%. So I mean, if you've been holding since then, my 2 cents would be not to sell right now. But again, like, not meant to be financial advice. Don't make any decisions based off anything I'm saying. But at the end of the day, this is my commentary in a sense on the altcoin market and these specific altcoins. With that being said, I believe that was all that I wanted to go over in this video. So as always, just to say it once more, none of this is meant to be financial advice, but all that being said and everything gone over, I hope you all enjoyed, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.
Ooh, I'm regretting now.